Good morning, everybody. How you doing? Having my coffee. Put headphones in this morning with this little mic thing because I've been listening to, watching, I guess, some of the videos that I put up. And I struggle with sound and being able to hear, very, very much. So I figure, maybe, I don't know if it's my computer that's old that the sound just doesn't go up very loud, but I know if I hook up a speaker or my headphones, then I can generally hear pretty well. But I just didn't know if maybe the microphone would help a little bit better with my videos. So I'm going to give it a go and I'll listen to it and I'll see if the sound is better this way, because I don't have another microphone that I can use other than one that comes on my phone. So so I had a lazy day yesterday. I didn't really do anything in the camper. I'm just so tired. That's the hard thing. It's like you have all the stuff you need to do. You need to get things together. I'm trying to improve my living situation so that I can improve my mental health. And just being here is helpful. But, it's unfinished. And because it's unfinished, I can't feel totally settled. But at the same time, I don't have the energy to work on it all the time as much as I feel like it needs to. I don't have the energy, and at the moment, I don't have the financial resources, but that may be changing here soon. So, there's some hopefulness there, I guess, that, the financial aspect is going to improve shortly, so long as everything works out the way that, hopefully it does, so that I can continue to focus on my mental health and getting myself in a better place. Yeah, so I need, there's so much more work that needs to be done. It gets overwhelming at times. Just like I have all this stuff to do. I know I need to do it. I'm the only one that can't do it because I'm the only one that's here. And then I'm living in it. So it's not like I can, send it off somewhere even once I get the money and have somebody do the work, because then I would have no place to live and no place to sleep while they were working on it. And that's just not feasible either. So this is what it is. I'll just have to do stuff as I can do it. It's just going to take some time. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I only do what I have the energy to do. And and so I've been thinking a lot more about, different things, different solutions, I guess, for, mental health issues. Been researching, doing a lot more, watching a lot more videos on the avoidant personality disorder. And I really feel like I have more of the disorder, not just the traits, because when I'm looking at the symptoms, and there's 7 different symptoms of avoidant personality disorder, I can relate to 6 of them to some degree. Some more so than others. You have to have at least 4 to be considered to have the disorder. And on my psychological report, they just noted that I had traits of, but they also haven't spent any time with me. The testing center is not my therapist. They are not the people that I see every week. They're not the people that I discuss my life situations with or anything. I had an initial interview with them, to discuss something, which of course I was crying the entire freaking time. I don't know why I do that. I really wish I could talk about my issues to, the people that I need to without freaking crying all the time. It's frustrating not being able to control that. And even watching some of my own videos, yeah, I'm not crying in the videos, but I'm crying when I'm watching the videos. So it's like, I'm like, what the hell is that all about? Why do I have to freaking cry so much? I mean, that's been like one of the things that I used to get in trouble for all the time when I was growing up, when I was a kid, was my crying. I mean, that's, you know, I cried so much. And it just made them abuse me more, because they're like, if you're going to cry, I'm going to give you a reason to cry. I'm like, what is that all about? Instead of understanding or trying to understand what I'm upset about, or having any sort of compassion for a child that has no control of their environment and is living with a bunch of people that can't stand her presence. It's like, so I cry and I isolate. I used to spend all my time in my room just so I wouldn't be seen, so I wouldn't be yelled at, so there wouldn't be something that would happen that would cause me to cry or cause me to do whatever that was annoying to my caregivers. I remember, I used to hide in my closet under, inside my brother's box of toys, because I didn't have any toys. I wasn't allowed to have toys. I was a girl. I had to learn how, but the thing of it is they weren't teaching me anything either. It's just, it's like I had the impression that I'm supposed to learn how to cook, clean, take care of the house, do all the girly duties. Boys have their duties, but boys were allowed to play more. My brother was allowed to be more social. He had friends. He was allowed to go out and do things where I really was not. Not that he got to do a lot, but it was more than me. And he just holds on to, well, I didn't really get to do that much, sis, and I'm like, well, but it was still more, you're still not understanding. It was still more, even though it wasn't much, because, we had shit parents, it was our stepmother and our dad who was neglectful at best. Neglectful and non-caring and not involved in any way emotionally whatsoever at best, to being abusive when he was drinking, which was every day. He drank every day. That was what he did. He drank. He'd get off work, he'd hit the bar, he would drink till the bar closed, then he'd come home and he'd be hungover, and he would be raging out in his alcoholic, whatever, you know. And he was harder on my brother with his, when he was alcoholic raging. I mean, there was a few things he did to me, yes, but it wasn't as often. Not that it wasn't bad, it wasn't as often as with my brother. But my stepmother, on the other hand, I found out just a year or two ago that she was jealous of me. I mean, I had no idea. I found this out from my mother, and then also found out that my mother had the opportunity to regain custody of me during that time. My dad reached out to her because I was being abused by my stepmother. My stepmother was jealous, and my mother refused to take me back because she said her reasoning was she wasn't going to take me without my brother, because she figured all we had was each other, and she didn't want to separate us. And they didn't offer my brother, they only offered me. But me and my brother weren't close. We didn't have each other either, because he got to go out. He got to go outside and leave the house. I did not, because I was a girl and I wasn't allowed to get dirty. If I got dirt on me, I got beat. If my clothes got dirty and I couldn't wear them, for the entire week, the same outfit I had to wear for the entire week of school. And if I got it dirty, that meant she couldn't send me back to school in the same outfit, which meant, she had to do laundry. And then I would get beat because I caused her extra work. I got beat for getting dirty, for not being prim and proper and polite and whatever, as a girl supposed to be. It's not like I even understood what I was supposed to be doing most of the time. I was just trying to not be in the way. So yeah, I learned early on that I needed to avoid people for safety, just to protect myself. I had to avoid my caregivers because my caregivers were abusive towards me. And the little bit of time that I got to be with my grandmother, I really kind of wish they would have just left me there. Even though she had some of her own issues, my grandmother was not abusive. She was not mean. She had a warped sense of some things because of her religion, but she didn't have a malintentive bone in her body. She never did anything out of negligence or to hurt somebody or anything like that. I mean, the things that she told me, yeah, mentally corrupted, some of the things, but she was trying to be helpful. And I have to look at the fact that, she didn't have a lot of resources. My grandmother only had an 8th grade education. Same with my mother, only 8th grade education. I don't know about the education of my stepmother because she was in Korea when my dad met her. So I don't know anything. I don't know much about her life before my dad met her. I know her life wasn't great, but it didn't mean she needed to be so mean and take out all her issues on a defenseless child. The fact that, I was always having to apologize for whatever it was she deemed that I did to hurt her or whatever, when most of the time I had no freaking clue. No freaking clue what I was doing wrong, how to do things differently. I didn't know what was acceptable because, she was Korean and she would yell at me in Korean. I mean, it's like she's yelling at me in Korean. She's trying to teach me Korean. I could never remember because I couldn't remember her language. I would get beat for that as well. But she also beat my brother for that because she wanted us to learn her language. But she wasn't good at teaching. She taught by beating. It's like we're supposed to remember something, and if we don't remember it after she's told it to us one time, then we're going to get smacked until we remember, and she's going to beat us until we remember. And we couldn't remember because we were being beat. It was such a traumatizing experience trying to learn a different language that yeah. And come to find out, like during all my testing and everything, it says I have really poor episodic memory. And which makes a lot of sense, now, because first off, I didn't know what episodic memory was. And episodic memory is about remembering your particular life events, things that have happened to you, you memories of your childhood growing up, the things that make you who you are, that give you a sense of self because they're your memories and your experiences. Well, honestly, most of my childhood, I don't remember. I only remember being beat. I remember being isolated. I remember the emotions. I don't remember, I don't remember any good times. I can't remember having a joyous experience with my stepmother, ever. I remember getting my legs slammed in the car door because, I didn't get out of the car fast enough, even though it was from the back seat, of a two-door vehicle, those old two-door vehicles. We don't have too many of those anymore with a back seat these days. But back when I was a kid, I don't know what the car was, but it had a back seat, yeah, but it was just a two-door vehicle. So you had to, the driver, the passenger, whatever, or somebody had to get out of the front seat first, and then they had to flip the seat forward, hold the door open, and then allow me to get up, lift myself up out of the back seat, and then kind of climb myself through over the other seat to get out the door. And she never had any patience for me, and I could never get out of the door fast enough. And I would get my leg or my arm, or I had my fingers got slammed in the car door because, she slammed the door before I could get out of the way. And, I can remember having to, hold buckets of heavy things over my head for punishment, because for hours. I mean, she would make me stand there for hours, it seemed like. I don't even know how long. If the bucket with all the stuff in it touched your head, it had to be held like a minimum of an inch over your head. If it came too close to your head, you got smacked, It was like, you can't, you're not allowed to touch your head. And you're sitting there for freaking hours, standing up against the wall, holding this freaking bucket of crap over your head as punishment. For what? Don't even know. Anything. It didn't, it was either that. I mean, I guess that was the easiest of the punishments because at least I wasn't being beat or, with objects or having things thrown at me from across the room or having my head smacked up into the wall, upside the wall or whatever. That didn't leave marks, basically. So yeah, I'm trying to learn more about this whole avoidant thing, and I'm really there's only one part of it that I don't technically agree with, but I have in the past. It's just not a current issue, and that is being afraid of taking risks out of fear of embarrassment. And I for sure have had that at different times, and it really depends on what it is that I'm learning to do. What is the thing that is happening where I am afraid of being embarrassed or causing someone else to be embarrassed because of my ineptness at whatever it is. And that has been a thing, but I do like to try new things, but I guess I do it on my own, so maybe that's the difference, is doing things like that on your own or doing it with a group of people. So yes, I'm less likely to do new things or try new things within a group of people because it feels awkward because everybody else seems so relaxed and I am not. They're all just having a good time, and that can happen, but I may need to have a couple drinks first. know? you know, Otherwise, it might be difficult for me to relax, to, participate. So, that's that whole avoidant personality disorder that, you know, I tested for having traits of. But they didn't give me the full diagnosis. But and that has a lot to do with, I guess the question, the testing and questions and things that they were asking me, all the stuff that they had. There was a bunch of tests, there was a bunch of tests. It took me 4 hours to get through all of it. It was only supposed to be 3, but I'm slow. So it took me 4. Because, at the last day, the last hour, I had to go by myself out into the lobby to finish the testing because the tester had another appointment and I went overtime. So I had to go do it by myself and turn it in to the office people when I was complete. And I sat in that lobby for another hour completing the last 2 testing things. One was on a computer and one was a questionnaire. A sentence blank thing where they started a sentence and I had to finish it. But that sometimes takes me a little bit of time because, a lot of those things I don't normally think about. And so answering them, kind of took me a minute, I guess. I don't know. I'm slow. What can I say? I don't process very quickly. A lot of times I have to think about things and I have to try to figure out what exactly you're asking me with the question, and that's a problem for me because a lot of times, different words have multiple meanings, and you're supposed to be able to figure that out by the context of the question. However, with that being said, what I perceive a definition of a particular word to be is very concrete and definitive. It's like it's hard for me to come up with multiple meanings of a word because otherwise I need a different word. If it's a different meaning, it's a different word. It's not the same. It's not the same. And it's like I will say one thing, but then somebody will repeat something back to me, but they'll use a different word, and I'm like, no, that's not what I said. That's not what I meant, because to me, that word means a very specific thing. And the word you're using to relay back to me is a different word that means a very different thing in my perception. And a lot of people have a really hard time relating to me on that aspect because it's easier for them to have generalizations and to have multiple words that mean the same thing, whereas to me, they don't mean the same thing. I'm looking it up in the dictionary. I have my dictionary that I use a lot and my thesaurus that I use, when I'm trying to do writing or whatever. If I don't want to use the same word all the time, and then I have to look up the words that is referenced in the thesaurus in my dictionary to make sure I pick the correct word, to what my thought processes are. So it takes a lot of work for me to do a writing because I have to check everything and make sure that what I'm thinking is exactly what I am saying. And because I take so much effort to do that, and then to have other people come back with a generalization that to me means something totally different than what I said it's kind of frustrating, honestly. It's just this has been an extremely frustrating thing for me because words are very specific to my brain, and it makes it. So I guess that's another. I don't know if that's part of the avoidant thing or what, or ADHD or what. I thought that was an autistic trait that I have, but they're saying I'm not autistic. They're saying instead of being autistic, I have ADHD, I have PTSD, I have generalized anxiety disorder with panic attacks, I have major depressive disorder, um, uh, traits of borderline personality disorder, and traits of avoidant personality disorder. But I have more traits of the avoidant personality disorder than I do borderline personality disorder. But because borderline personality disorder is more known about than the avoidant personality disorder, I find people keep bringing up the issues of the borderline personality disorder, and I don't feel like that's what bothers me the most. It's the avoidant personality disorder that I think causes a lot of my issues. That and the ADHD, because the ADHD is something you're born with, and that is something I was born with. Nobody knew about it because they didn't think ADHD was a thing for girls. And I'm 52 years old being diagnosed with ADHD at 52. So I've gone 52 years with a disability that wasn't even acknowledged because I'm a girl. It's the same with all of the abuse that I entailed as a child and everything. All of that was because I was a girl. So there's so many things that happened to me that it was okay for it to happen to me, and I'm supposed to expect, because I'm a girl and I have certain duties and things that, I'm supposed to do because I'm a girl, and other things that I'm not supposed to do because I'm a girl. You know how frustrating that is, being a girl and being told you can't do all these things because, you're a girl? For the longest time, I resented being female. I really, and it's the same with, pictures in my family. It's like I have three brothers. I had three brothers. The youngest one died a long time ago. He was actually, the younger two are half brothers. We don't share the same father, but we share the same mother. We didn't grow up together. I didn't really get to know them at all until I was an adult. And then my youngest brother died not that long afterwards. And so I didn't really get to know him. I didn't really have any opportunities to get to know my younger two siblings. And so the youngest one that's living now, of course, I didn't grow up with. I don't know much about him. He doesn't really talk. I've tried engaging him in conversation when I've been around him, and he's just silent most of the time. He doesn't have a lot to say. And it's just hard to, which is just kind of sad when you think about it. I have a brother I can't relate to because he doesn't engage anybody in conversation. He just sits there and listens. And I guess that's a good thing, but, at the same time, it would be nice to be able to engage in some way. But because I didn't grow up with him, I don't know him. And it's it's a little uncomfortable at times. And the brother that I did partially grow up with, I don't really remember that many interactions with him, to be honest with you, growing up. There was a few, but I don't remember really having much of a relationship with the one that I lived with. Because he was out of the room. He was able to be out. And I was in my room, in our room. We shared a bedroom. He's not even, he's almost a year younger than me. He's not that much younger than me. And yet, he was allowed to he had a big, huge box of toys, a lot of Legos and all the cars and things. And I had a couple of dolls at different times. But by the time I was 8, I was told I was too old for toys. And all my toys were thrown away. And I didn't have anything. Whenever my grandmother would, if I'd go visit my grandmother and she would send me back with something, it would disappear while I was at school. I would be at school and I would come home, and the things that my grandmother gave me that I cherished would be gone when I would get home. And so I couldn't object because I didn't know they were going to be taken away. And my stuff is just gone. I have nothing, I have a couple of outfits. I don't even get to pick my own clothes. I have to dress, what my stepmother wants me to wear, and she would oftentimes dress me just like my brother. I hardly got, clothes very much when I was growing up. I mean, I remember having the same pair of pants for probably several years because they still fit around my waist, even though they were 3 or 4 inches too short for my legs. But because I could get them on, I didn't need new clothes. And so I would get picked on and get made fun of because my clothes didn't fit. And I had to wear the same thing all the time. And it's almost as if she purposefully set me up to be traumatized and picked on by other people, because she wanted to make sure that my bad treatment was going to happen in all aspects of my life. And I don't really know why. I don't understand why this woman was jealous of me. I was only 5 the first time I can remember meeting her. Evidently, I met her before when I was around 3-ish, but I don't remember. I don't remember meeting her till I was 5. So there's that. And that kind of odd. You can't remember. I don't remember ever living with my mother either when I was growing up. Except for once when I ran away from home when I was 16, and she let me stay with her for 2 months. And then I woke up one morning to find all my bags packed, and she handed me $1 and had me walk down the bottom of the hill with $1 in my bags to catch the bus to take to my grandmother's, by myself, mind you, because I was going back to my dad. My dad was coming to my grandmother's to pick me up, and my mother didn't want to deal with my dad. She was afraid of my dad, I guess. So just sent away. No reasoning. The only reason I was given, which to me was not a valid reason, was that he had threatened to report her to CPS for marijuana usage and threatened to have her other children taken from her if she didn't give me and my brother back. Me and my brother. Full brother. Back. And, I'm the one that, I had got a job. I had gotten a job, and I'd worked for like 6 weeks at that job, just long enough to make the money to pay for the bus ticket for me and my brother. And I didn't have enough to pay for 2 full price tickets because my ticket was full. I had to be full price, but my brother was really short at that time, so I lied and said he was younger than what he is and got him a half price ticket, and that I was able to afford. My mother didn't even know I was coming. We got to the Greyhound bus station where in the town close to where she was living, and I found her phone number in the phone book. And I called her on a payphone from the bus station. Hey, Mom, I'm in town. I'm at the bus station. Can you come and get me? Because I hated living with my dad. Hated it. He was, negligent. And, there was some sexual abuse going on a little bit. There was, definitely the psychological abuse, and he was an alcoholic. And he would drink a lot. He was very violent when he drank. When he wasn't drinking, he wasn't violent. But when he was drinking, it was a guarantee he was going to come home and be violent if he caught anything out of whatever. So, hated living there. I just hated it. We were butting heads a lot. We were arguing a lot. It was just because he wasn't a good provider. He just wasn't. My dad's idea of providing for us was he would buy a pack of chicken, a pack of hamburger meat, a bag of potatoes, big 10-pound bag of russet potatoes, maybe a loaf of bread, butter or margarine or whatever. He would buy, sometimes we would have bologna or hot dogs. And And yeah, and he would buy like the aluminum foil, and then it was my job when he would come home with all that is I had to separate the whole big, huge family pack of chicken into individual pieces and wrap each one individually in aluminum foil. And I did the same with the hamburger meat. I would make individual hamburger patties and wrap each one up in aluminum foil to put in the freezer. And we were responsible, if we were hungry, we would have to go make ourselves a hamburger or make ourselves a piece of chicken or a hot dog or a bologna sandwich. There are times, and that was when he was providing food. I mean, there were times that we had milk and a loaf of bread, but we didn't have any cereal. I didn't have anything to eat before going to school in the morning for breakfast, and it's like all we had bread and milk, and we had sugar, and I would toast my bread in the toaster and then tear it up into pieces to make and poured sugar all over it, and then the milk on top of the bread, the toasted bread, to eat for breakfast as my makeshift pretend cereal, because that is what was available to eat. And he would give us like $1 to go to have for lunch, but I couldn't buy school lunch with $1. School lunch cost more than $1. So, I didn't get to eat school lunch. I got to go to the snack machine and buy a bag of chips and a soda. Which, and then go outside and smoke for my lunch break at school. I would smoke outside. I would go smoke and have a bag of chips and a soda, and that was what I got to eat. Because I couldn't afford school lunch. It cost too much. And when I was in elementary school, I can remember at different times, going to school and not being able to eat lunch because I didn't have any money on my lunch card. And so everybody else is eating lunch and I'm not. I'm sitting there not eating because there was no money provided on my lunch card for me to get lunch. It's really kind of shitty, but as far as he was concerned, he was doing an adequate job. And because I had clothes to put on, didn't matter that the clothes didn't fit, didn't matter that they were hand-me-downs, it didn't matter that he didn't actually pay for them, somebody else did, or somebody else gave them to me. I would get a lot of clothes from people that were just clearing out their closets. That's how I got clothes, is people were clearing out their closets and would ask me if I wanted to go through it and see if there was anything that I liked. And I had to do that on my own. He didn't do it. He didn't do it. It was other people that would, they could see that, I didn't have anything, and they're trying to be helpful. But he was, as far as he was concerned, he's like, if there was nothing but a bag of potatoes in the house, then he provided food, and that was adequate. And I had no need to complain. If I had clothes on my back, whether they fit or not, it was adequate, and I was not allowed to complain. That's just kind of shitty. But when you think about it, and I look back at everything, I can kind of see where the avoidant stuff came from, because I knew I had a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety, and I knew I avoided a lot of situations, but I didn't know there was an avoidant personality disorder. So I'm still learning about that, but trying to figure it all out. But this is part of my diagnoses, I guess. Guess it's better to know than not to know, because before I didn't know, and if you don't know, you can't fix the problem, right? and not being validated and all that, growing up and not having anything, I didn't develop a good sense of self. I wasn't supported. I was put down for not being adequate, for, you know, having learning disabilities and having trouble in school. They just, as far as they were concerned, I wasn't smart. I was a stupid child. I can recall being made to feel like I was stupid all the time. Hence why all the praise went to my brother. And I was the scapegoat, so to speak, and my brother was the one that, in a lot of ways got held to higher expectations, which he he resents the high expectations that were put on him because he didn't want, it's not that he couldn't, he didn't want to do the things that everybody was expecting him to do. He didn't want to do it. And so the expectations, to do things he didn't want to do. So he's got some issues too. He's just not really addressing it. Maybe one day he will. I don't know. I don't really talk to my brother right now because I just can't handle, the conversations. It's like everything comes back to, me being a problem. Everybody has to walk on eggshells around me to, my feelings, my emotions, and it's just because I'm just trying to be heard. I'm trying to be understood, and I'm trying to explain what I'm feeling. And it would go so far if somebody would just say, I understand, and show a little compassion instead of telling me what I need to do to change my behavior to fix my problem, because it always ends up about me and my behavior. And so, if I feel like I'm always the problem, it's just I hate feeling like I'm always the problem, so I just avoid those people. I'm just like, I can't be with you. I want to be with you, but I can't be with you and feel good about myself because, the things that are normal to everybody else is traumatic to me. The way that they joke and put each other down jokingly. They're all having a good time. They all think it's all fun and games, but I find it extremely offensive and put down. I feel like I'm just constantly being put down. And who wants to be around people that put you down all the time? It's like you are being held accountable for how you respond or react to the things that they do to you. You're supposed to accept it. It's supposed to be okay. You're not supposed to make them feel bad for their behavior and how they treat you. You're supposed to just go with the flow and accept it and be okay and just be happy and be cheerful and, all the time. And yeah, it just doesn't work for me. So I guess this video's gone on a little long. It's 43 minutes now, so I need to probably cut this off because long videos take a long time to upload, and this is just a little bit more of how I'm trying to deal and learning about and understanding my mental health issues. My therapist wants me to get a hold of this NAMI organization and do some group stuff online. But that's not really getting me involved with people. The person that did my assessment, she wants me to do DBT skills in a group setting, and I'm guessing that has a lot to do with they're trying to find ways to get me involved and be around people because of my avoidant personality issues. So, which means I need to be around people more, not just do everything virtually, because I'm still isolated. If I'm doing it virtually, I'm not connecting with anybody. There's no energetic exchange of neurons because I'm not in close proximity to anyone. I can talk to people virtually. I can, yeah, okay, I can see them, but having a personal person to person interaction, I don't know. I guess I have to make the phone call and I have to try, see what it's all about. I don't know. But it's kind of hard. It's another thing they say I need to have somebody, I need to appoint somebody in my life to help me do these things, but I don't really have anybody that I can ask because the only people that I have in my life that I engage with at all really are my children, my adult children, my grandchildren, my sister-in-law, and I have one friend, an old work friend that I used to work with when I used to work. But I only see him a couple times a year, 2 or 3 times a year, because he works. He's working. He works a lot. He's on call a lot. He's a nurse. He's an RN in an operating room where I used to work. And they work him to death. He works so much. He's always working. So he doesn't have time to be available for me. My sister-in-law has a new baby. She doesn't have time. She has some time. I'm allowed to come in and visit and all that stuff, but she's doesn't have the time or the ability to be checking up on me. You know what I'm saying? It's like, she's got a baby she has to attend to. That's more important than the baby. I'm an adult. I'm supposed to take responsibility for my own actions and my own behavior and my own mental health issues and my own livelihood and my own everything. I'm an adult. I'm not a baby. My son, he works 6 days a week, 12-hour shifts. And he's a brand new dad. He's got a new baby. He's just a month old. He doesn't have time. He freaking barely has time for himself. He's exhausted. He's working way too much. I could never ask him for anything else because it would just be totally unfair. He has a new family. He's, newly married, a couple years. He has a stepdaughter, and he has a new baby. Can't ask him to be, my emotional support person, to have him check up on me every day. He didn't have time for that. My oldest daughter, she has 5 kids. 5 kids. She doesn't have time. She has 5 children. She has her own mental health issues. Also, she's trying to take care of her family and do what's best for her family, which is totally understandable. She didn't have time. My youngest daughter, she lives in Colorado. And yes, she doesn't have children, but she's in Colorado, and she works like 3 different jobs just to keep a roof over her head. She's a single female with a couple of dogs. She didn't have any children. She's not married. She didn't have a boyfriend, because she can't find a decent man. Everybody, wants to manipulate her because she's pretty. She's my daughter. My youngest daughter is very attractive, and because she's so attractive, people only look at her in one way. They don't look at the fact that she has a mind. She's extremely intelligent. She had learning disabilities too growing up, but she's extremely intelligent. She's very smart. She's very independent, very independent. She's a strong female. I'm really glad I raised strong children, even in the presence of my undiagnosed mental illness, because I didn't have any of these diagnoses other than, no, when they were growing up, I didn't have any diagnoses because I didn't ever see any therapist of any kind growing up. Even, I tried to commit suicide at 12, and the hospital wanted me to seek a therapist to be in therapy. But at that time, I was living in West Virginia with my grandmother, and my aunt was living there with my cousins, and her husband had just died. And so she was there too. And And my grandmother didn't drive, so the only way I would be able to get to therapy would have been my aunt. She would have had to take me. And she refused because she said I was just trying to get out of school. I was seeking attention and trying to get out of school. I tried to commit suicide, mind you. You know, I'm rushed to the ER. I'm having to either have my stomach pumped or I had to drink this charcoal crap to make me throw up because I took a bunch of pills. Because I didn't feel like I belonged there, you know. It's like nobody wants me. I'm in a place, you know. I was in a place with my grandmother who I greatly appreciated. She was the only person that cared for me, and then all of a sudden all these other people are living there. Yes, they had their own tragedy, but I was 12 and I, when you're a kid, you're only thinking about yourself, and the fact that nobody's giving you any attention. It's everybody else and you're just being neglected by everybody. You're being pushed aside by everybody because you're a kid and you have no freaking problems. And, you can't complain about anything. You're not allowed to have a voice because you're a kid and you don't have any freaking problems. Your problems are all imaginary. They're non-existent. You're a kid. You have no freaking problems. But I had a lot of problems. Just nobody would acknowledge it. Nobody would acknowledge my problems. You would think, trying to, commit suicide would have been like, a sign, hey, she needs some help. There's something else going on here. But no. Instead, I was punished for trying to commit suicide because I was attention seeking. And I guess, yes, I was attention seeking. I was trying to get somebody to acknowledge me. Someone to acknowledge my presence. Someone to act like they wanted me around. I felt very unwanted and very much in the way. And I had nowhere to go. And I had nobody that wanted me. And growing up and knowing that, there weren't even any pictures of me as a newborn. No pictures of me as a newborn. My brothers, all three of my brothers, all had pictures taken of them while they were still in the hospital. They're hospital newborn pictures. But me, no. The first picture that was available of me, I was 3 months old, and it was probably my grandparents that had it done because it was an Olin Mills photography, and I doubt very seriously that my mom or my dad would pay for that. It had to be my grandparents. So growing up in a family that doesn't want you, I was a scapegoat. My mother got pregnant to get out of the house. She didn't want children. But she was like, well, if I have to raise kids, they might as well be my own kids. I don't want to raise anybody else's kids because she was stuck taking care of her sisters because her mother was an alcoholic and her father abandoned the family and took her brothers. Her father abandoned the family, took the brothers, moved to Ohio, left her mom with 4 daughters. And my mother was the second oldest. The oldest daughter had moved out and gotten married. And my mother was the second oldest daughter. And she had 2 younger sisters that she was responsible for caring for while her mother was at the bar. Or wherever she was. I don't know. I guess she was mostly at the bar. And she resented having to be a caretaker. So she met my dad because my dad gave her mom a ride home from the bar. Oh my God, how messed up of a situation is that, She met my dad because my dad gave her mother a ride home from the bar. And my mother was like, I just want to get out of the house. I don't care how I have to do it. And my father had no clue all this was going on, I'm sure. He died when I was 25, so it's not like I can ask him any of these questions. He's been gone a long time. I can only remember some of the things that he told me before he died, but it wasn't very much. We didn't really talk about my mother. We didn't talk about my childhood. We didn't talk about, there was a couple things here and there that I can remember, but he was too busy out at the bar. That was his home away from home, you know. He only came home to sleep. Everything else was done at the bar. He ate at the bar. He drank at the bar. All his friends were at the bar. He was forced to be a parent. He got forced into being a parent. But he also should have known better, because my mother was only 16 when I was born, and my dad was 23. My dad swears he wasn't 23, that he was younger than that, but my birth certificate says he was 23. The birth date is accurate. Don't tell me, no, I wasn't. I was only this age. No, my birth certificate says you were this age, and this is your birth date. This is when you were born. It is accurate. I can do math, basic math anyway, not advanced math, but I can do basic math. And the fact that he would deny that was just ironic to me. Like he was ashamed that he was so much older than my mother. And that's why he was forced to marry her, because he got her pregnant. And my grandfather was the town police officer, and my father evidently was was military police before all of that. I guess he had just gotten out of the military right before I was conceived, and then had to go back into the military after I was born because I was born defective and I needed medical attention. I was born with some deformities that, with my legs and my feet, and I had to wear braces. And he couldn't afford the braces, so he went back into the military to pay for that. And the military pay for my braces. To straighten out my deformed legs and feet. So, not only was he, I'm a defective child. I don't know. It's just really kind of sad. It's kind of sad when you think about it. I have all these issues, all these things that have happened. And nobody willing to really listen to my side of it. They just like to tell me, oh, well, you need to move on. Everybody has a shitty childhood. Not everybody fears for their life every single day of their childhood. Just because, and the person that says this to me, my stepdad, he's like, everybody has a shitty childhood. His idea of his shitty childhood is he had a perfect childhood until his dad died. And then when his dad died, then things changed, and his mother became an alcoholic, and they lost the family business, and then they went into poverty because his dad died. Yes, that's shitty, but that's not what I had to endure, and the fact that they're so dismissive of the fact that my childhood was as traumatic as it was, and my mother was uninvolved. And she doesn't want to feel guilty for not being involved and not caring for me. So, because she doesn't want to be guilty, everybody's protecting her feelings over my feelings because, she doesn't need to feel guilt over the situation, or whatever, But as far as I'm concerned, she's partly guilty. Yeah, I understand she was only 16, and 16-year-olds do not make good decisions. But she's a much older now, and even though, yes, when she was 16, she didn't make good decisions, she should still, acknowledge, I'm sorry. I didn't make good decisions. I didn't know all this was going on. I didn't, but no, that's not what she does. She's just like, everybody was against me. Everybody was going to go against me. So she's still blaming everybody else for why she didn't raise me. My grandmother was going to testify against me in court. I didn't have anybody on my side. And that may very well be true. But she's the one that decided to get pregnant. And she should take some accountability for that mistake. That's all I'm saying. It'd be nice for somebody to take some accountability for what they've done to contribute to my issues, my mental health issues, that everybody expects me to just get over it and be okay. I just want you to be happy. Well, I can't be happy because I have all these mental health issues because of the abuse that I've suffered throughout my life. Started in childhood, and because of the abuse I received in childhood, and not being allowed to have therapy because, you know, uh, we're strong. My family, we're supposed to be strong people. We don't need no stinking therapy. We just pick up and move on. Nobody's allowed to acknowledge mental health issues. You got to sweep that under the rug and keep it secret and pretend that you're okay even when you're not, so everybody else feels okay. So everybody wants to feel good in their deception instead of acknowledging the real issues and working to fix them, working to, having discussions, just open dialogue, would help so much. Having open dialogue where you are free to have the discussion, to talk about your feelings, how the things affected you, and to just be heard, by the person that should have been there to protect you and wasn't. Anyway, we'll talk about more of this stuff another day, but that's enough for now. We're at an hour. I need to get off of here, and I have some things I need to go do today. So I have to get myself motivated for that. I have to go out, and it's kind of a chilly morning, so I'm really not wanting to get out from underneath the covers too much, but I need to go eat something. I need to make something to eat and get myself going, because I have things that I have to do today. So I'm going to go do that. All right, so talk with you guys later. Have a great rest of your day, and good mental health, happy mental health, whatever. Try to just do your best, and self-care. That's all I got to say. Try to take care of yourself even when you don't have anybody else. Maybe make a few comments on my video and my page and see if you can understand or connect to any of what I have to say. Okay, talk with you later. Bye now.